adaptation of the climate changes. What we see is that the advances faces different resiliences in the territories. Not all the parts want this energetic process to be delivered. So they installed in social, cultural, and very diverse in Latin America, where can be part of the local ideas, local communities. They don't want this to be offered in the production of the projects or something that is cultural, those that deal with the energy projects and want to develop it there. Uh, they have developed some mechanisms for the territories and also the companies. They have added up to this challenge of being with the expectations that need to be done. All the efforts done by the state and other companies keeps working with industries and the energetic transition because we believe that in order to be able to leave the fossil fuel somehow, we need to generate a lot of renewable energy, and this means that is part of the line of transmission that is going to get a very important pressure in the territories. That means if today we have conflicts with the projects that we have, the energetic transition that is going to imply many more projects is going to generate more conflicts in the territory if we are not able to deal with these projects. Therefore, it is part of the fair stuff, meaning that where we have produced carbono, this is closing right now, we therefore can construct the energetic efficiency not on a bleeding wound, but on a already cured idea. And we can think about an energetic option that can be fair for everyone. Now then, why the conflicts? This is what we're talking about. Why can they affect the energetic transition? Why is that so? First of all, because when we have conflicts on a territory, the projects they are withdrawn and the projects they're not executed, but with public strength and with private strength as well. And they can be part of what needs to be done, being something that takes a couple of years to be performed. Therefore, what we're waiting for is that all the conflicts, what they generate is a higher cost for investment, not only because there's a delay, but because the financial world on international phases also evaluate some conflicts, because there are conflicts, there is more risk and the cost of the investment. And what I will charge you for that will make the projects more expensive in the places where we have a conflict. The second thing is that when there's a conflict in a place, the most probable thing is that there's a vulneration of rights. This is going to generate a lack of trust when we have this institutionality. It's very difficult that this is taken by the development of the project. Therefore, it is makes more difficult to develop the project at the same time. And on the other hand, when we have a conflict in Latin America, for example, different parts, different areas, the political authorities, they also have some political reactions that do not necessarily adjust to the institutionality. Therefore, it makes much more difficult to develop some projects. And a third thing, suspense, a third point is related to a conflict where the illegal identities that look to find a place to recover and work with the legal activity because this is part of a fight that is indigenous or environmental. And therefore, it turns much more difficult to develop the project because it seems that we are moving around against environmental issues or indigenous. And what we're fighting for is a part of the illegal activity. Therefore, it's much more difficult the distribution of the projects, and therefore there's an important motivation because the idea is to try to avoid the territories. And to be able to avoid them, what we need is try to enter adequately and respond to the different challenges that the infrastructure, energetic infrastructure has. That's the reason why we want to face them much better. In that context, then, I'm going to go to this review. I'm going to talk about Latin America and the Caribbean, some economic challenges for the energetic transition that really are part of the scenario that we're moving around, but it is what we're moving around. Latin America has high rates of poverty and with a differentiated impact indigenous and teenagers that have a very bad context in the energetic development. Therefore, also, we have some areas where we have worked with the carbono, what is close by technical central power, or we have mining of carbono that generate an impact that is very important. And therefore, these do exist, this energetic transition, because there's an impact that is negative for that. And there's a series of development and a series of energetic transition part of lack of employment, really. And therefore, I will stay with a clean environment. There's no recovery of the place where I am. So therefore, I do have a lack of employment because I'm going to be willing to have an energetic transition. Therefore, other areas in Latin America and the Caribbean, the state has not arrived to solve the problems of the citizenship, and this is the reason why it's going to weaken the democracy. When there are no problems to solve the problems of the community, we believe we have we believe less in democracy. We have some energetic interest in some Latin America that is part of the federated options, and some that have regional levels going downwards, and it has different areas of autonomy and is related with energy. Um, there's a location that has a certain authority to try to give permits, and therefore there's no conciliation of interests at a national level and all the local levels that are lower. Uh, we have a lack of trust in the institutions in Latin America. We have many informal practices in the institutional policy, and this also weakens up the information with the decisions that the institutions take. Therefore, we also have in some countries in Latin America that will take these decisions, and it's also there. It's also there in some territories where they have to go to get other projects. This is very difficult for the development of the project, and we have some assembled projects in some areas of Latin America, and it's also complex to develop this type of projects. Therefore, we've seen this part of emergency and these frameworks that do not adjust to the challenges of the climate change. Therefore, this is an energetic transition, and they do precise a lot the fact that we talk to them and we discuss energetic efficiency with some ideological frameworks that follow other means of communication. For that, in all these contexts, we don't cannot do much really as interested parties developing this energetic thing. And this is the context where we are in Latin America. And here I just want to work on a disclaimer because not all the countries, not everything that happens is this, but at the end is part of the context where we move at. And the same happens for the next slide. Here I just want to give like a sort of energetic download. This is a responsibility as such, and here again is part of the warning. It's important to make that so you don't believe that I'm not saying bad things about these projects, but these things happen. Uh, this does not happen everywhere, not in all the projects and all the territories, but these things happen. First of all, because we see in Latin America and the Caribbean, there are some things that are not well solved and they do trigger conflicts. We don't have sufficient tools to define the location or the map of the project. So when a project decides to go through a place, there's no tool that has defined that well. That these are places that we can go through, and we have conflicts therefore. And also, most of the energetic resource is in territories of indigenous people, and that is a huge complexity. And it's important that we need to know how to face it well. Many projects that are installed in areas that do not have access to energy. And that, of course, is not well received by the community, any community. No one wants that transmission line because there's a huge wind project, and I don't have energy there. I do oppose to that project, and this happens in some cases in Latin America. We have many difficulties of accessing the information, and there also institutional information that we do have a lot of lack of information that is fake and that goes around. And also, there are many myths around the impacts that the different technologies have, energetic ones, and this information goes around. And if we add uh, the artificial intelligence that goes around the internet and creates an answer to a question, it's even more because many places do not take that as a guarantee. What they does generate is a counter position where the artificial intelligence is saying is different to what you're saying. So that creates a conflict. We have many countries where the environmental standards, the regulations, the law, even we don't have any to face any or some of the impacts. So, like these products, they leave, they go around, and this happens. It's something that just happens. And then we have the decision taking for the development of the projects, and this is getting some development. The conflict as well is the basis, is based on that, and it's very good to develop the conflict. We have many difficulties to have access to the justice from the most informal one, because this is a mechanism to claim because we break a bridge, as the access to the institutional policy is difficult for people to issue a claim. And we have some non-institutional practices concerning the defendants. We have some pressures, and we have a disappearance of Latin America that has many perfect cases. It's not massive, this doesn't happen everywhere, but it does happen. And this is something that we need to be in charge of because it's a product of a conflict and generates even more conflict. And then we have some transactional practices in all the involved parties. Here, the municipalities, the companies, and the communities, they look for transactional tactics. And they all get in a negotiation to try to develop a project, and that is very complex. I don't say they all do it, but it's something that happens. Therefore, as I told you, with all the elements that I showed you, we have elements that are common in Latin America and the Caribbean. And having given that, we motivate for the Ministry of Energy to make a proposal of the ministry in the framework of the energetic consultation and the energetic conference to sign. So all the 17 countries, they signed this fair we still need a lot to discuss. This is a discussion that is going to be given this week, and we will wait for the last day to have some news on what has been signed or not. But if it is signed, what we're going to have is a commission that is signed by different countries that's going to surveil with this energetic approach to the projects and a common protocol how to develop this in the different countries and the Caribbean, and a platform that is worth all the experiences that is part of this development to face these products. And also a landscape of training to work with all the companies following this logic, following this protocol, following these experiences to be able to share it. And in this framework, we made a sort of gathering. You have received, right, some ideas and some information. We reached many experiences, and as you can see, there's a totem here. I don't know if you see it over here. There's a totem. I think you can see it. No, you have not seen it, right? Okay. This gathering is something that has been reached for different initiatives. Out of this, we have selected some that were related to some developments. and some other ideas were not selected concerning these challenges. And out of the 11 countries that participate, Fernanda, do not get mad because I want to mention them all. Uh, this is part of the initiative, and part of this initiative belong to the public and private sector. But we even reached some things that were very interesting to get to know. And also, we had some categories. I'm going to, I really try to let you know about it, but we're running out of time anyways. I invite you to take a look at the totem because there appears all the experiences. You can see all the experiences, and there's the video as well and some pictures. But a category that belong to public sectors where we selected 17 initiatives. We want to give public policies to make a sort of territorial uh, generation of energy. It depends on the territory, of course. And we have another initiative that is on the carbon footprint and all the transitions to the renewable energy, and another one that is related to the generation of energy. And there we have 70 initiatives that give point to different type of looks and companies to be able to face somehow the land and the benefits like a community and to develop things with less conflict. A second level of a second typology of experiences is related to the local development, and it is promoted by the state and the NGOs that at the very end of everything, they have generated initiatives that allow the development of the local area. We have some productive energetic areas. There's a productive energy that is agroalimentary and it relates to tourism and is astronomic and belongs to several things. We have some social projects where we have some initiatives on the social welfare and projects of circular economy. I have to tell you that this PPTM that you see here, this PPT, sorry, it gave me a lot of headaches. So what you see here, I suffered a lot to put it here. I tried to fix it many times and it was not possible. So really, I really tried to do it. Let me tell you that, so you know, please take that into account. But I had a really hard time. And the actors, all the participants concentrated, here we selected 10 initiatives, we said themes. These are oriented to climate change. We saw as well coordination of the energetic area, governances, experiences for common sectors that are related to local this type of ideas, and so part of the also the public areas as well, public companies. This is what we received, and now which are the challenges that we talked about? These were included in these experiences. First of all, many projects they look for the reduction of gaps of energy, rurally speaking, and many projects they follow the line of a decrease of the light. What to do? I mean, in the distributed generation, and some projects that are oriented to energetic conflicts. Here we have some projects that are related to energetic areas, and many of the experiences they reached NGOs or the state related to the decision to reach the renewable energy for the board of directors to reach it out for a matter of opposition to the renewable energy. And this is an interesting model. Also, we had some experiences that were related for the indigenous, that was social, and some other conflicts of the benefits of social transitions. And we reach even some sector, public and private areas with the experience to enable these spaces for dialogue and the access of information that is on time and relates to the energetic sector for the companies to generate ideas and to move on with more information. We read some experiences that are energetic, that are part of the territory, and some analysis for the infrastructure that is energetic. This is very important because you could say that this replanning, the fact of coming out of the state, belongs to some experiences and a sort of analysis of an adequate people for the energetic area and some experiences as well that we received. And this is environmental and also belonging to capital, human capital related to energy, some climate change, and again, some experiences that are of social investment for local development, productive, social, and some experiences that were quite interesting. And we had a couple of projects that were part of the community to sell the energy associated with companies. So here we have a very important replication matter after all. What things have we not discussed? Maybe someone has done that in some experiences, in some areas. What is missing? Because we have not discussed enough things. There's an urgency of some economic and state management for the conditionings of each territory. Here we have an important land reorganization. And we need really to work on the regulations that is social for these mitigation ideas to be able to carry them out. There's some standards that we need to develop for sure. And there's a widening of the dialogue of the mechanisms and the environmental management, the dialogue between the communities, the companies to work on a very fair transition. It is important as well to expand the themes on the energetic projects that they really do deal with the private sector. There are experiences that are powerful, but there's also many, many experiences that are small, something that we're looking for. And there's a lot of everything, really. It's important to move on with the experiences with the local communities. They do share what we need, needing being the fact that we need not only things for the company, and like an important look for the ministry that we need to really comply with practices that are involuntary towards an institutional system that is able to revalorize and deliver incentives to the sustainability. So the companies do not do that because they want to distinguish themselves or because they can, but they have to do it because the scheme valorizes that. It's something that we paid for. And therefore, I believe that we're going to be able to move on because all the companies they can incorporate and they will incorporate what we need. And last, in last term, it's very important that we really move on with the energy associated to the carbon footprint with health that is affected all over the years. What I said before, if we are not able to construct this energetic phase over a wound that is healed, we're going to continue reproducing this conflict. But before that, come here, please. How are we doing on time? We have a level of participation, please. You really want to come here, you're going to reach this QR. I mean, you have to show it off, and then you don't have to agree with what I said. It can be differently done, but the question is what policies or mechanisms is it important to develop to face this energetic transition? Uh, I will agree that that you do agree with this mechanism. So, what are the things that we need to work with? And if you already scanned this and you're writing everything down, let me know if the technology works. This doesn't work. What a pity. And now I'm in open documents. What things have they appeared? You have some citizen safeguards, standardized conditions that delete this conflict with communities before they're standardized, and some previous community that is considered again is one here. Some experiences we have not seen them considering some previous experiences. Thank you for that. Previous consultation, participation. I'm sorry, the person is not speaking to the microphone. We have a problem with the audio, and the speaker is not using the microphone. We don't have sufficient sound to interpret. I'm sorry, we don't have sufficient sound to interpret. Now we are back. Thank you. Many things that are very interesting that are related to the fact of sharing it and the matter of being involved with the other projects as well. And what else you want? I can continue. A higher participation that is of the citizens, some benefits, and some impacted, and some things that are positively obtained. Many contributions arrived, and they do. This does only belong on the people that sit in the area. So they were very creative, and we're gonna stick to that because I believe this is part of the way we do things, and this is part of what we want to do with this ministerial use and the work that this committee is going to work in, uniting the work of different countries and the Caribbean in this sector. So I believe that this is part of what is being read, and it's important that the panel that is coming now can set an analysis as well. So let's take a look at this because it's gonna be your turn to improvise. So thank you very much for listening to me. I hope that this had made sense. And thanks very much for participating in this space. And now we go to the next speaker. Thank you. Thank you so much, Cecilia. It was very, very interesting, really, without any doubt, for the participations and everything that is available. Going to hand the floor to the moderator, Matilde Spoderator, Head of Contents Unit, Methodology, and Associated Needs of the Participation and Community Re-election of the Ministry of Energy of Chile. And also, I ask you that, given the fact that you're going to be with us for this session, and after that, after her, we're going to have the participation of Alicia, coordinator of the Observatory for the Development of the LAC, Fernando Ceballos, leader of the working team of energy of the French Agency of Development, Jessica Arias Gaviria, a senior developer of Poland Fair Transitions, Juan Fernando Patiño, that is a specialist of sustainability of ISA, and Sara Larraín, that is director of Chile Sustainable. So if we all here, I guess we are. Let's give the floor.
Well, good afternoon. Can you hear me properly on the mic? Kind of. Okay, so. Good afternoon. Thank you, everyone, for being here and to attend to this panel. We are really happy from the whole team, actually, to see this room full. And it's very good to have this topic have discussed. And for Olale, this is a very relevant topic. We are so happy about this discussion. And thank you for coming and the panelists. The public is coming from different countries in Latin America and in the Caribbean. So thank you for being here and accepting the invitation to this dialogue that is related to the social challenges of transition. And also the other challenges that we are after lunch. So we have to be really, really energetic to this public because we need to advance in these actions that are going to take us to an inspiration place and also to have this nice conversation. But well, the conversation is going to start with two questions, and then everyone can share their own experiences that come from the private sector, the public sector, from the social, the civil society organisms of the civil cooperation. And as we like participation, we are going to have some cards, big cards on the audience, so people that can that would like to ask questions, they can do it, and we are going to select some of those so we can actually answer them in this panel. And nothing else, I think. I don't forget anything. After this introduction, I'm going to start with this first question, the introduction of Cecilia. We have this first perspective of the challenges, and we are going to complement this. And we would like to ask in a general way, what is the strategy or concrete initiative the companies, the state, the civil society has developed, or the different organizations have developed to face the territorial challenges when we are shifting to this energy transition? Let's talk about policies, concrete actions that have been developed so we can have experience shared and we can learn from that. We're going to start with Alicia from CEPAL. I think that she is going to frame the question and the answer to start. Can you hear me properly? Thank you for the invitation. As Cecilia said, I think it is really important to show the three different kinds of actors that we have. We have an state that in theory is the one that guarantees the common well-being. We have the private sector that maximizes the earnings, and we have a social society, civil society that is actually concerned about the well-being of the society. So with those three actors, when she asks, what are the challenges? I think that for me, there is this central challenge that we have been working for more than 20 years in the territory. The central challenge, it is how to make compatible this triangle that can be fatal or virtuous when we talk about sustainable development, social justice, and what we call environmental sustainability. What is the formula for this sustainable development? For us to have development of energy and social development as well. That is the central focus we need to be on. And according from my experience, actually, I know that some of this challenge can turn into public policies. First, to generate resources to empower the society. So how do we create conditions for the communities to power the resources, the political resources, their social resources, the human resources they have, or the economical resources as well? Otherwise, it's easy to say that the community is lying, or they are deceived, or is anarchic, or well, That is the first big challenge. The second big challenge is to install this challenge and relations. This is a little bit happening already, but this relationship change that it is handled by the policies, and that is not new in our region, with the private companies and the civil society. And with that, we have to empower three capacities that the work we live in. It's urgent. It is the strategic capabilities, how to think about the main things, because what is the urgent thing in the long term? The strategic thinking is fundamental. Strategic capabilities and skills, collaborative skills, non-competitive, that are working together in this world, capacities of these three relations that are coming from people that are different than us, because it's easy to be in relations of people close to us, but then the last thing is to establish mechanisms of governance and political organization. And what I understand as principle of a political organization, because I cannot read with my glasses on here, well, for example, capabilities to participate in the benefits that the community has to have. And I am talking about principles of public policies, for example, how to handle the common goods, the activation of the resources of the community, what I said in the first challenge, the involvement of the experts with ancestral knowledge. And this is not very well seen, but it's a common thing, not good, but common. The activation of the public deliberation, and what means that the promotion of alliances between different members of the society, the creation of these fields of the strategic alliances, and then proposals, because this is fundamental from the private world. It's very interesting. I think that this is good enough to start. Of course, in 4 minutes, you have to cover all of this. So thank you for your summary. Now, in the general introduction that Cecilia was talking about, we can mention this distinction, because this transition, it's for talking about this migration, and we have a specific challenges related to the closing of the coal mines or central coal factories, and we are installing renewable energy projects. And sometimes we are going to talk about one or other territories, and what Alicia said, there are things that are pertinent for both of them, and some others are more specific for one or other territory. So we are going to continue with Fernando Ceballos from a perspective from the international cooperation and the perspective from the French Agency of Cooperation. My first challenge here, first of all, it is to say it in 4 minutes, but first of all, thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be in Santiago with this beautiful weather. Our entity, it's a public bank of development. We fund national or international enterprises. And before answering the question, I would like to take a step back and say why these territories, maybe it's the ideal place to talk about the energy transition. It's not only building up these new lines, but it's also other areas of this transition that are energy efficiency and the use of the energy, and that can be done in different levels of the territories, and these messages are difficult to deal with in the national way. So the Local governments are the ones that have to tackle those challenges down. And also, I would like to say that when facing energy transition, not all the territories are going to have the same impact. A territory that was based in coal mines, for example, is not going to have the same trajectory with the energy transition if you have lithium or copper. So these differences are going to be dealt by the local authorities. And now talking about what we do in the FDR and what we do to face these challenges with the different instruments we are handling, we have these loans of public policies is a tool for these development banks that support the state in the definition and the execution of the public policy. And this is associated to a matrix. And when these triggers are complied with, they actually, we loan the money. In South Africa, in Mexico, we have done it, and these loans of public policies that were together with the fair political transition in these countries and territorial applications. In South Africa, for example, we have a loan in this framework that it is called Energy Transition Partnership, where we have a loan of 450 million euros associated to the definition of mechanisms of social protection to help the territories where the coal is extracted to be reconverted. One of the examples, sorry, I dropped something. One of the commitments, thank you. One of the commitments of the South African state took in is that they are going to create public employment there to manage waste, to accompany the workers that used to live from the coal mines. This is an example of how we can accompany a fair transition of energy. Mexico, we have another example. We are supporting this plan of transition with the new president, and the AFD is supporting this area that used to work a lot based on petrol and oil. And they are having they need to implement this strategy of changing their economy because they depend of the oil so far. And we, as other development banks, we support the experience exchanges and the counterparts in Mexico and in South Africa, we are organizing this trip to France so they can share their experiences. I don't know if you know, but in the 60s in France, we had a lot of extraction of coal. In the 50s, actually, we had 500,000 people working on that. And we had a lot of experience of what we worked on and we didn't. So we can share that. Fernando, we are going to continue with Jessica Arias, and she maybe can give us a perspective more from the state, things that have been done in Colombia from this perspective. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here and the ones that are in the online connection as well. So, several experiences in Colombia that are ongoing and where we have a lot of positive exchange and learning and something to correct, of course, but we are open to conversation. And the first thing is that we have to acknowledge that some territories, the state has not been caring a lot. They have been abandoned and they had debts with these territories. And it's already a challenge to start having this conversation, and you have to get there in a humble way, because when you get there with the different entities and you want to try to correct those mistakes of the history, it's going to be difficult to get in. We need to be sensible and we have to understand what were our mistakes and we have to work with them for the future. And of course, we have a lot of need of integration to have local presence and to understand what it means, a local presence. It's not just sending someone to check what is the situation and then come back to the capital and process everything from there. It is a cooperation structure with people and entities and representatives of social society and neighbors locally, and we have to strengthen these connections and something that Poly, that is the civil society organization I represent, we have been working with what Cecilia just mentioned to see how we can help the strengthening of capabilities in different regions that have been struck by extractive industries of fossil fuel, and now they have a high power or potential for renewable energy. In Latin America, probably we have similar things, and this is the same territory that is going to have the consequences of stop producing fossil fuels, but they have a great renewable potential. And so how we can generate skills and capabilities for the region and the people directing the region, they have tools to get into the conversation and not only to demystify the conversation, but we need to talk about fair transition in the territory, and also they can also be prepared to answer for the valid demands that they are going to be requested. We have pilot projects that are very beautiful and productive where we have seen how from solar energy we can generate independency in rural regions where a myth is that for example, this kind of public transport is not going to work out. So to show these pilots, it's so good. It is possible. This is an exercise that Pauline has done in those struck or affected regions. These can be actually taken into consideration. Also have this supply chain for example, the vehicles and maintenance and everything. I'm going to tell you a little bit more in the future interventions. Thank you, Jessica. Maybe we can use some more space because we have some chairs here in the front row. If you want to use that space, we have 3 more chairs here in the front row. If you want to take a seat, 4. So no problem if you want to move up here to the front. So we are going to continue in this reflection of strategies and initiatives that have been developed by in this case by companies to face this issue of transition. And for this, Juan Fernando Patiño from he works as the sustainability director, and he can give us his perspective. Thank you to the organizers. It's a pleasure to be here sharing with you. And in this short time, I would like to tell you these initiatives that are focused in this transition of energy, but that needs to be fair. One thing that is really important is something that Cecilia just mentioned, how to transcend going beyond this transactional relationship with the territory. And that is quite concrete, how we go beyond the management and the minimal management in order to go further in the social area, because we understand that the social transition and energy transition has to be fair for the territories. And this is why in different countries we adapt the mechanisms of public policy and different institutions as sections. And in Peru, for example, we have had adapted this mechanism where we can redirect the tax funds to execute, and we can reinvest this in the different new infrastructure. We have some kinds of experiences from installations of batteries in public areas in Guajira and Colombia, where we have a lot of renewable energy that is coming out from there. But there are some territories with difficulties of access to energy or basic public service, and through this service mechanism, we have gotten beyond and also got at the service of the territories and what we can do, for example, with the nature. We have to do it efficiently and we have to do it quickly and also transparent. And in that way, we can accelerate the positive impact for those territories. This, if we accompany this and we complement it with voluntary initiatives going beyond the minimum coverage of the social aspects, and that it is something we have a model of social connection, and we have a volunteer program as well for the impact of the environment and nature, that it is connection Jaguar for, and in Chile is Puma connection. It is a volunteer way where we go to this territory where we are present, and so they can access mechanisms that are for funding the different activities of their productive activities with this renewable energy. And in the development connection, they want to develop the productive capabilities of the communities with sustainable models that are profitable financial models. And this is what we are aiming for when we are supporting territories and communities that are under these sustainability, financial sustainability mechanisms, and to get a little bit away from dependency and existentialism from companies. So this is why governance programs and community strengthening to be speakers and managers of their own resources, it's very important. I would like to tell you so many other things, but actually I run out of time. Thank you for your intervention, but I would like to highlight initiatives that are coming from the companies and maybe also from the public policy. They are using some sources in order to empower these projects coming from different communities and local areas. Thinking from Chile, this type of mechanisms doesn't exist. So maybe we are not using this opportunity of these experiences that we have in other countries in Latin America and the Caribbean. We do not have these conditions, so we can learn. And this is a good reflection for us to know how we can do it to work with this properly. And to close this first part of the conversation, I will leave you with Sara Larraín. Last but not least, maybe you can complement from with this perspective from a different view. Thank you, Matilde. We are in OLADE. OLADE, it is a political entity that gathers the ministers and the people in charge of the region. Therefore, transition and socio-ecological transition in the territories is so good, and it is a responsibility from the state. And the balance, it is what we are, it's going to take us to this capability of balance. And from Cepali was well worded. I'm happy to have assumptions like the ones that you presented, but they are exceptions. And I would say that understanding this and seeing it from the Chilean case, I know the experience of Poland and other organizations in Mexico, that how we came from Chile show what we have learned from our transition that looks very successful when closing coal companies, 11 of these companies in the first few years, but we still have a few to close, but we already have done several. And what happens in those territories where we have closed these coal companies? The Energy Ministry have made a lot of efforts, particularly in the citizens' participation area. And we have limitations because we have this energy transition and technological transition to reduce emissions, or technology trying to balance out the amount of new capabilities that the electrical national system requires. And that is not related to the planning of the development of the energy system from the public area. It's trying just to balance the investment of the private sector to complete with these capacities that the country needs. And this is the first element where we have to acknowledge the support from the state actors that in general are the ones that are not the most powerful ones in different situations. So at the same time, we face elements that are not for the jurisdiction of energy, but are in the jurisdiction of environmental department. For example, what is the closing plant, the environmental assessment and the resolution of environmental qualification. If they are not with this since 1997, they are going to have other requirements about transport and demolition and everything. So we work in public policies, but we follow the transition from territories because we can't build, as everyone else said here, we cannot build another energy development on top of not treated waste from the previous era. And what we have found, sadly, is in the case of Tocopilla, and this is not the only case. In Tocopilla, we closed the 6 coal extraction industry there. There is no other industry there. And they closed it and nothing else has happened. So the National Commission of Energy gave the permission of cease of operation, but that permit has legal technicality that take us to this problem of complying with this closing plant. The fields of coal have not been cleaned. The ashes are still there. So what people see is that it was closed, but nothing else has happened because of this legal vacuum and legal void. And we lost a suit against ASGener because they said we do not have obligations of compliance with the closing program because we presented this option of installing this other processing system, but this transaction cannot be done in this black box. So it has to be transparent in the legal system that we are complying with. We have other company actually that is going to provide other service, but we don't have the closing program. So we are in the situation where we don't even comply with the closing plan, and the state is not verifying the surveillance supervision and the fines that can be applied, because in the management of waste, for example, so we do not have fair transition, we are not compliant, the state is not supervising in order to verify that this is not happening, and we have this legal void that it prevents us to relate the energy legislation with the environmental legislation, and the state appears as they are not supervising how the law is being enforced, and that is devastating for the feeling of safety of the population in relation to their rights, or at least to be clear how the law is being complied with. And we are not talking about only territories with coal waste and ashes, but we are talking about this community that historically has cancer rates that are higher than normal, respiratory problems and cognitive deficiency kits that is higher precisely because of the diseases related to this problem. So we believe that we have a high complex problem, and this is why I wanted to highlight the importance of the state. And I think that there is a good work of the participation with the Ministry of Energy, and we have this transition document that it is socially fair, and we actually put the 5 cities where we have 28 of the coal companies in the country, and there you have action plans for this energy transition that is fair. But this action plan, it has no funds. And again, what happens that the state is not funding this in order to generate this plan and to make it work. So we need to find allies inside of the state, and we have to go one step higher and to get a bigger commitment to see if with that we can get funds in order to comply with these plans, because this is going to be really embarrassing if they do not comply with the international commitment. We are facing a problem because we have this interest from different ministries in the public sector. They want to move forward, but in the state in general, we don't have a coordination or governance to think about this. So we can have a lot of alliances and work in partnership in order to go one step higher. But if we don't get this to be funded and that the wheel it's in the same direction, we are losing the legitimacy of the transaction.
Thank you so much, Sarah. The problem is that here we are installing renewable energies, and not the state, not the companies. They have are gonna be there to with clean projects, where we have not cleaned out the last things. Our problem as NGO is that we push for the social transition, and the loss of legitimacy of a transition that is not fair is going to avoid to boost for strength in concerning the acceleration of the clean energies, because we have lost legitimacy, and this is the political problem that we have as a background. This is the reason why I think that at the end the OLADE meeting is going to sign the project that you have quoted. I think it's fantastic to have a real commitment on the ministries and all the regions establishing certain standards to match conditions that are homogeneous in the region, and that we can really move on with another level of sense. Uh, Thank you so much, Sarah. Let's go to the second round of questions. I remind you that there are some cards over there for those that have arrived later. Part of the team is going to be collecting them, and I think that we have received many. I don't know if we will be able to read them all, but we're going to try to make a good selection. So here is Carolina going around. You can give the cards of ask for many more. And let's go now to the second round of questions. We also have 4 minutes for those. Thank you. And we are doing okay. I hope we continue with that. And the question is, how are we going to focus to reach these challenges that are pending to move on with the transition? And with this, I mean that we can be able to identify which lines of work and how can we move forward towards a way to move on from the NGOs, the cooperation, to then therefore be able to move onwards in these socio-territorial areas. Alicia, thank you so much. Yes, I do remember what I said in the first question that you did. I remember that what you said. This is repeating what we all said. The matter of creating conditions of every type in the communities, and the matter of relating to civil society, governments, and establishing mechanisms that are of real principles. This is going to make us generate public policies that can move around these challenges. And when you start talking about public policy, we understand that the public policy has an objective to solve with problems for the city. There's no way to get lost there. This is the reason why we're here, and this is the reason why we are part of the state as a main character, and we cannot get lost there. So over these situations, these things that we're working on, and how we, I mean, for example, it has been shown perfectly well with this contribution. We have learned to work, thanks to the work with the LAC, that there's 5 conditions. This is no recipe, these are suggestions. We have 5 conditions that we believe should be given when we boost public policies, in this case, for a transition that is energetic and is fair. And one of the conditions that we have to work with is the matter of dealing with the sufficient things. And when we don't have a standard frameworks, uh, we have a lack of will that is fatal in the territories. So, how are we going to do that? How are we going to face it? Uh, like, for example, this is like an oath or something that um, is very important to take into account. If not, is political will. A second condition, I insist, is the mechanism of governance, and that is concentrated. Uh, what is going to work with this company, and how are we going to suffer or not to benefit with this transition? And the governance, the declaration of principles. What does it mean? What is the governance in this territory? It can be something different to the other territory, of course, because the territories, they're diverse, they're different. But what we have is the quality of census, and this is something that we need to work on to face. And a third condition, what you said, is the lack of budgets, the budgets that have been previously assigned, because if you're going to just name a budget that never appears, um, what budget do we have for this process? Uh, Something that Cecilia said, the learning process that we do is part of the ministries. How can I work with that? How can I put this clean transition? Um, what is that going to be for the ministry, and how am I going to coordinate things? And something that is very important and is essential are the communicational strategies, uh, like communicating, for example. It's not anything new at all, but it's essential to communicate well in the territory and in the country, meaning that the communication is going to avoid many problems, when at the same time is a part of the condition that will guarantee public policies that are truthful. So thank you so much for your time. Thanks to you, Alicia. Thank you so much. There's some elements that we mentioned that, of course, they belong to the agency. And like this is given in the practice. And Fernando, I don't know if that these working lines and these initiatives that you have developed, and we can see that they can continue moving on. This takes elements that we are moving on and working with Alicia. There are several things here. I want to first of all, it's a matter of focusing this territorial scale and net energy and parts of the basis of our society and our economy. These are very complicated. The local governments, they don't always have the resources, and this is something important to make the planning that also commits and creates a link with the governance. So there. Uh, these are not aligned with these timing sessions. And the planning as well should be centered not only in technical points, as for example, the kilowatts hour that are produced, the line kilometers, but on indicators that people understand and that improve the light quality, because this is not only about injecting more energy, the life quality, the water, improving the life conditions, and these indicators that are the most important thing. And this is a bit more complex that shares the projects. And because these projects are going to originate some communities, and some really benefits of the projects after all. Because there are many questions here. There are many questions. Some of the answers I do know them. I'm not going to tell them because they're personal answers. I would never want to commit the agency, but there are some questions that relate the benefits with fiscal policies. So the benefits are such and part of the projects they're saying is part of the development of land, and they allow that the communities and the governance and the territories they invest with preferential actions, and that there are benefit of the chances, the opportunities, and the this idea. I mean, uh, this is a project. And the Alares of Bolivia and the hydrogeological. And what about this balance of the water? And what about these layers? The community uh, is part of the extraction of the capacity because they need to understand what happens with the indicators. So they have indicators that can be with the extraction and the mining extraction to see if it's improving and if it is impacting the water quality. So it's part of the control and the impacts that is going to be inside the energetic transition projects. Fernando, we are going to continue with Jessica and the experience that you have. I think this matches uh, some background concerning what you said, meaning that there's a training profile. Thank you. So I told you that what was missing. What's next? It's very important that we continue promoting many needs, but there's a first stage concerning the development and the capacities of the workers that are already being affected and that have the closures of the mine, the carbon mine, and the populations that deal with integrations to other chains, energetic renewable energies, after all, and what we're going to do to promote these matters and these areas in the development of operational models so they can have others incomes, developing other productive incomes, boosted with energetic development is something that we believe is key and is fully necessary. And it's again that these are small frameworks in a sea of things that we develop. And to escalate, we need what the other panelists already said. It's a political will that is huge with all the legal commitments and, of course, financing that is key. And something very strategic is to be able to give a sort of support. What can we do? How can we relate these projects so the local governance can have access to financing, renewable energy, and to promote energetic communities and municipalities that are energetic on the territories. But nevertheless, we have many standards and many regulations where we have like a learning that we should be looking for to escalate and something that we do to move on and to integrate the land planning to the energetic transition that is fair. And this implies, as I said, the fact of being able to be in the territory. What do we do? How are we formulating the plans, the communities, to demand that these plans they involve this energetic transition? So there's a lot of work to do. We're going to continue with that, and again, not to get stuck. We need a lot of will as well. Thank you so much, Jessica. Let us continue now with Juan Fernando with the assignment and the vision of ISO. Yes, here the line of this conversation here is without any doubt, of course, business of public policy that make easier the investment of the companies in the territory. And here I want to make a call with the scale in all the possibilities that we have for learning that is cross between the initiatives of the different countries. Here, I just wrote down a figure. This has not been copied. This has been adapted and the experiences that we have. These are the spaces that we need to go over many of these countries. And we have some developments and some implementation that is real with learnings and errors and many things that are needed to be improved. Here we're going to put them as a matter, and it's important to really know how to move. So this is part of the integration that is regional and is part of the developments that we have had. Um, we are going to develop many others, so the exception is less because a specific company is going to achieve that this is in the business class and achieves as well to have this in the budgets, not because it's an effort as such, it's because we are creating the incentives. So this is really part of the commercial standards of this development. And here I'm talking about things that are so specific as the same terms of reference of the new projects that we have, the infrastructure, the energetic, that include a standard and a sort of investment that is always necessary to enable the territories for this energetic transition. That is something that is not only a goodwill of a certain company being able to affect really what the companies are called for to be profitable, to make it profitable for the business. So it's key. It's key and it's part of the tax investment and also being financial because this has to go from different actors to different actors. This is going to sound as a repetition, but it's important to repeat it. The strengthening of the leadership that is communitary. The communities and the territories that are completely strengthened, they will be able to execute some actions that are related for these territorial essential. And this is it. It's a matter of establishing some indicators that are real, that they have a social impact that is relevant, and it is part of an indicator as well of social return of the investment. And this is important to start because it is part of the success and has real measures to be able to monitor the performance and the effectiveness what is being done. Not only to take that in account of the sustainability of a different of the same standard, but as a management at a social result of the impact. This is part of some examples. I will keep some for the next intervention. Thank you so much. Good, thank you. There were two. Two in the questions. Okay, we'll talk about them then. Um, I wanted to discuss the exchange of the learning exchange because this is one of the objectives of this situation to be able to share experiences. This is the reason why we have this totem. The idea to get to know, so you get to know with each other, and this can become institutionalized in LADE to be able to work on these exchanges and learnings that are for the public sector, as we are enabling certain incentives, and at the same time we are having this network to move on. For that, we're going to need the NGOs moving forward and moving to the same horizon. And for now, to close the second round, please, I will hand the microphone. I do agree with all the elements that have been related here. When we look at what is going on, this is not new. If we look at the general case of the region, but especially the case of Chile, we, in the year 2014, we took off a reform of the law of transmission because we were not able to develop the transition. There was no territorial ordering to relate to a certainty for these transition lines that would give certainty to the state, to the companies, but also to the communities that are there with the territory. And this is where we establish these fiscal laws to install the projects of generation. It was not applied. And today, with the transition, the energetic transition, we're facing the same problem. We're facing the fact that we don't have the developments of the company because and the company has to face and has to go beyond. There are not many standards, and we continue in a B standard that is part of the uncertainty for the companies, but also for the communities that are in the territories that all of a sudden they have then that suddenly they have another line of work. So the first thing here, it has been already said, is a matter of working with territorial planning. Infrastructure, the energetic infrastructure, if it's iron, is not in the space. It's in a specific territory when are certain elements, and that is going to have to be done. We need to know about that with the fact of moving on. We need certainty. We're going to have this type of project creation. This has the certainty of the community. So this area is going to be developing some energetic elements because we put in order this level of participation for the energetic development and these cycles that are governmental. And what has been said, this is very crucial. And if not, we're going to continue with the lack of uncertainty everywhere. And the first one is, where do you set the investment of the project? There's a community, sometimes there's a protected area, and this is what is generating a conflict. I would say that there we have to move onwards. Without a participation, I believe it's impossible. And the first message here is that Olave has to go to help more democracy in the energetic development of the region. It's a democracy solution, and the strategies of dialogue that every region has. We do have them in the Republic and in the presidential, the election, after all, is part of needs things that need to be done. Why do we work? Why do we do that? In the region, we're going to have the ordering with participation, and this is going to move onwards. So I believe that the planning that is full of participation and with a plus of democracy is going to generate the certainty, and then is going to ensure the process of sharing benefits. And the company, of course, we are not the little sisters of the quality. No, the company, they do have this it's a win-win situations, and but they have their limits, and that is fairness. And this is something that needs to give certainty as well. So I would say that the planning and the fact of being able to reach a second part, this has been already been commented by several panelists, go to standards of sharing benefits is something that is essential, and is not necessarily the budget and the management of the state of the resources. It's not. In the case of Chile, we're talking about the funds of the nation, and probably that we have to be finishing Sarah, sorry. As the colleague of Brazil said, we have to find a way to share benefit through public mechanisms that establish this performance and that enable this justice. These two elements, they're completely key, and will make us to take into account the interest of the culture and the environmental heritage. If we continue, we're talking only about the energetic sector, but if we go to the other restriction elements as the critical minerals and we get into other places, what happens if we explore all the salaries of Bolivia, Argentina, what will happen? We're going to have a conflict if there's no way to order and move altogether in the society. Not only the governments and the companies. I think that this is a call that is essential. If we move on forward with that society, we're never going to get on time. Thank you so much. Thank you. We are running a bit out of time, so my promise of the companies, sorry, of the companies of the questions is not going to be allowed. But there's a solution here. Talking about time, um, if the panelists are available to answer next day these questions, we're gonna upload them in the Ministry of Participation. That is participatewithenergy.miraenergy.cl. I think that's the one. Participatewithenergy.cl. And then we're gonna upload the answers because the questions are fantastic. And let's see if you're available to collaborate during these 3 days. If you want to, you can ask for that, and it's gonna be very interesting. Thank you so much, all of you. I asked the panelists if you can uh, give just 1 second, please, to take a picture all together. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. The photograph, the cameraman is going around. A big applause for you for that. Thank you. I do take this time to invite you tomorrow at 5:13, where we're gonna be delivering the OLADE Awards for the energy. These are projects of all the region. So in the framework of what we've been discussing in this panel, I think it's very interesting that you can be with us. Thank you. We invite you now to have a short break and enjoy a coffee break. And after the break, we will be coming back. Thank you.